This is finally a video that is outside of the Corona disaster and now in something that I really enjoy. So it's again a tell a friend video, a tough video, when to teach languages to kids. And there's a lot of discussion about when and how good you have to speak the languages to teach the kids and so on, at what age. Now, what I want to do in this video is I want to raise, the awareness that the more languages you expose kids to, the better these kids will learn languages and will be able later to perfectionate the use of languages. So I usually show intellect, limbic system and reptile brain, but for this video about the languages and how to learn them, I will only use the intellect because reptile brain and limbic system are a little bit off here. So we have a speech center, so the brain, and a hearing center. And now the thing is, when at the age of very young age, what kids do is kids seem to give a lot of sounds, syllables, like to this child, I don't know how to call it, bubbly or whatever, that the children do sounds when they discover that they can do sounds. And the thing is, that happens now is when they actually hit something that, and then here I draw like mom or dad, yeah, or the kid, the kid says these things. And now if mom, kind of smiles, or dad smiles, the kid receives dopamine, and the kid did say this, both said, or one of them said, this is great, gives, a smile, and then dopamine is being produced, and the kid remembers that seems to be good. And so it does that for many years, so maybe from 0 to, let's say, 4 years, maybe 3 years. Yeah, the kid does that, and so the external world then shows this is a sound that makes sense and not. So this is kind of attached to the speech center where the kid does it itself, but obviously also the world, like including everybody, the world gives into the ear of the kid in the hearing center. It gives also sounds. So maybe there is a dog, there is a duck, and they all hear quack, and the wow, or a cat meow, so they all go in here, and the kid actually learns the syllables and the sounds and the words these people use. And here we come from the programming of whether I can hear and speak specific syllables. So after being kind of exposed to different syllables and the blind spots, I draw them here in black, these ones the kid doesn't know. So if the kid would actually have been raised maybe in China, there would be others, there would maybe this one not, and so on. So this has been done in the first 4 years, about the first 4 years. Afterwards, you still can learn a language, but very, very difficult. And especially these sounds is very, very difficult. So if you learn Russian, there are like 6 different S. And for German, maybe there are 2 different S. So it's very difficult to learn that afterwards. So also in Italy, there's some sounds that are very difficult, like Y or N, and something like that, or the R, something like that. And so somebody that is not exposed in the first 4 years with these sounds has difficulties afterwards to actually use those. And that is where I say we have to expose our kids to many languages, to many sounds. To the languages I come in a second. Many sounds which cause the guys, it's not that we just show the kid a lot of different sounds. It has to be attached with some reaction, emotional reaction from us, positive or negative, that actually then kind of leads to a dopamine, which makes the programming of the brain possible or very more intense. So the kid has to sense on an emotional level, wow, this was a good sound, this was a bad sound, and then the dopamine actually makes sure that the brain, intellect here, remembers it. Okay, so this is now for the sounds, which is very important, but it's not about the language, the grammar, and the words. And here I want to come to the second thing in this video, and that is, let's say the kid grows up like in German environment. So usually the kid would learn that specific words, it starts with 1 word, 2 word, 3 word sentences and so on, and more complicated sentences that requires a grammar and so on. So it starts, let's say the mother speaks German, and then the kid would actually learn, okay, the German language. Now, if the father would speak, for example, Italian, then the kid would actually learn, okay, with dad there is this dopamine enforced learning, reinforced learning. The Italian words sound sounds and words sound good. And now this is all associative, we just have association. So if we have to think something through, we actually enter this area. There is the German, we enter a certain area, we discuss, and there are German words attached to this, and there are Italian words. If there would be an aunt, something like that, and she speaks, let's say, Polish, then the kid would have associations with Polish words, thinking about that. So everywhere there's the Polish words also attached to that thinking pattern. And the kid can actually, for example, if it sees the ant, then it would immediately have more associations to the Polish words, if it says that, to the Italian words, and so on. So what is happening is that we then create, should I do that in red? Yeah, I do that in red. We create a multilingual brain. Yeah, that means instead of having, and now I come to I should have drawn that maybe in red, to the single, the single language brain, because the single language brain, just if you take this, the single language brain, that is the intellect, then we think about a specific thing, or a specific thing here, a specific thing here, and there are only, here, let's draw that, these are the German words, they are associated, there are pictures, there's other thoughts and so on, and there's the German words associated to a specific pattern of thinking. They just close, there are hundreds of thousands of these associations to specific words. And now if I have a multilingual brain, so here only green ones, the German ones, would be attached. If I grow up in an environment with many languages, then here would be also attached words that are Italian words, or in case there's a Polish, then Polish words would be associated as well. And the context switch can be done very, very quickly by just switching into a specific mood, in a specific, this is the aunt, this is the mother, this is the father, this is a specific environment. And we think multilingual. And so we have associations to the words from other languages. Now, if you don't have that, so if you grow up in a single language environment, then what happens is that your thinking is just, let's say it's German, it's just green. And then in a specific area, you kind of try to different language. So in a specific area, you try to remember words. They are maybe attached to an object you see, like a house, you see casa, okay, you learn that, and then you learn an association to, if there is like house here, or house, a dorm, then you know that association. And so it requires more, it requires here more pain, more time, more brain power to actually pull out the word while you think this, to pull out the English or German or Polish word, so the word that is not your mother language. Your mother language would be directly here, so the German here, the green would be directly here. But when you then learn a new language, you create a locator, because there's no room here. There's no room in here, because this is actually taken by other thoughts, by associations in your brain. So your the synapses, the axons that are connected, that actually trigger. It's all, you know, just triggering specific things that then end into speech. You hear something, speech, sense something. So that means you have a step more. You don't think in that language. So you're not, the word is not close to where you're thinking, but it's a step away, or it's 2 steps away. And that makes it very difficult for a single, here I write single language brain. Yeah, it makes it hard to actually dig out the other word. And so that means for me, it is very, very important to reserve, and that's the point, to reserve by introducing a different language. Best is always with a specific person, and that person only speaks that language. So language 1, language 2, language 3 in that case, for example. And it doesn't matter, you know, you can add more languages to it, but attach it always to people. And so what happens to this brain is that it allocates space. Space means that there are neurons in that brain that actually are attached to these words, that are close to the object, to the activity, and so on. And that means you create a brain that has a lot of associations to specific languages. And that means this brain is able, within a split second, to change between the words. And that is because it reserved space, neurons that actually represent those words in a different language. And it gets along also with the grammar, because the words are not, you know, the word is not created itself like tree. No, it is associated in a context with, for example, the tree is green, and then this is the grammar. And if there is a different grammar in a different language, like Chinese, for example, then there would not be this grammar like we have with a verb and so on. So maybe they have a different grammar, and that grammar is also stored in the associations. So you would have the Chinese word, for example, and then the association would be different, representing the innate grammar of the use of this word, because you heard it from the different people. And so I encourage, so the conclusion for me and the recommendation is to all parents to teach as many languages as possible. And I would say, if your language skills, for example, in English, in French, Italian, whatever, is relatively good, so that you might have more than 1,000 words and you are able to read a story to the kid, then please, for more than, I would be tempted to say, 2 years, you should exclusively speak that language to the kid, that language you know, and to create an environment like this. And after 2 years, if you want to, you can switch back to that, to your family language and so on. A recommendation here is also, usually the world speaks a specific language. Maybe this family actually grew up in England or in the US, so USA. Then the language from the world is anyway omnipotent in here. So here would be the English language. And then the mother speaks German, the aunt speaks Polish, the dad speaks Italian. And so the kid is actually exposed to 4 languages. And there's no problem in the kid distinguishing between it's the same way as it distinguishes between a cat, a dog, and a duck. you know, the different sounds. It's a little bit more complex, obviously, because they use hundreds or thousands of words, so it's a little bit more complex. But I would say 90% of kids, you know, around 90% have no problems whatsoever to learning 2, 3, 4, 5 languages at the same time, because of this mechanism of the sounds, but because of this mechanisms of creating associations in the place of the object that they think about. And creating space means for the different languages in that area, so that when this area is being thinked, you know, if the thought goes across that area, that this kid then actually has a very, very short, you know, activation span for the language that it wants to select. So if the activation span or activation trigger means I see aunt and I think in Polish, I see dad, I think in Italian, and that makes it fantastic. And it's much, much better than if you have a single language brain where the association is a learned association. So it's not attached to the thing I talk about. Let's say I talk about a house. I would talk about my native language, which would here be, for example, German, that I heard from mother. Then I would think about that attached to the object house. And if I then talk to another person in a different language, I need to go a step into a translation area where I maybe have the school, I imagine the school, and I imagine the object, and then from the object I derive then the word. And that also makes it very, very difficult to then go into a grammar. How can you go into a grammar? Because there you have the word. So then when you enter this grammar of this other additional language, you are in the teaching, in the class. And so it's so far away. And so therefore it's much, much better to teach the kids when they are, I would say, for these sounds, it's 0 to 4 years. For the languages, I would say it's around 0 to 5 to 9. So it's 7 plus minus 2. So 5 years to 9 years. The kids are very, very much influenced positively, obviously, in most cases, by what they hear from the surrounding. If you do that, then after the age of 9, then the teaching of the learning of a second language, third language, fourth language will be in this stepped approach where you have to, you know, go further. So I hope that was interesting, and I hope I can encourage some people to actually, even if their language skills are not that much, to go this extra mile. And the kid will actually thank you very much for receiving a multilingual language brain from the parents and the environment. Thank you very much. Comments are most welcome. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.